What's up, heathens? How y'all doing? So tonight we're going to be going over the lunar eclipse model in the flat earther movement. Obviously, it's not going to be an all-encompassing model. It is very specific to the Globebusters on YouTube. They have this fantastical idea of how to explain the lunar eclipses.
The first thing that I noticed on all the lunar eclipses is where the moon and the sun were at a 180 or really close to a 180, and they were crossing over the North Pole. So I thought, well, the only thing that could really cause the eclipse to happen on the moon's surface would be something in the middle, right over the North Pole. I've seen both explanations too. I tend to go with the nodal point explanation, and somehow harmonically canceling out the transmission of light on certain frequencies, or it's some sort of canceling type of effect.
Yeah. That's how I would see it as well. Yeah.
If you're interested in actual information on lunar eclipses, why they happen, why they turn red, then you can go down below. The blood red moons always send religious fanatical people into a tizzy. So go down there, check out the reasons why it actually happens. I will espouse some of these during the show.
After I got the moon and sun working, one of the first things I wanted to check, because September was coming up, was the two eclipses.
Wait a second, he got the sun and working on his fucking model? How the fuck does that even work? I gotta find that video. All right.
But for the solar eclipse, I kind of got stuck that it was the moon because of the positioning and everything. I mean, it just is right there. When it came to the lunar eclipse, which happened September 16th to the 17th,
Okay, so obviously he's got to explain like why lunar eclipses happen. Well, okay, so I understand on their model why it might be a little bit harder to explain lunar eclipses, because obviously the moon doesn't go behind the earth, so they have to explain why they happen. I'm glad that they're undertaking this and they're going to explain something. Now, for the solar eclipse, I like how he's like, well, I worked it out to where it fixes the solar eclipse shit. Because, I mean, they literally have, like, the moon 4 miles away from the goddamn face of the earth. The sun is just a little bit farther from that. And apparently, given how much heat the sun gives off and actually lands on the earth, the moon doesn't melt when it gets in front of it. I don't know what their moon's fucking made of, but holy shit.
First thing that I noticed on all the lunar eclipses is where the moon and the sun were at a 180 or really close to a 180, and they were crossing over the North Pole. So I thought, well, the only thing that could really cause the eclipse to happen on the moon's surface would be something in the middle.
Oh, I know where he's going with it. He says there's only something in the middle of the earth could have caused the fucking thing. Okay, so just for reference, lunar eclipses can normally be seen by like half of the earth usually, or maybe a little bit over half of the earth. So he's going to have to provide a model that explains why this what the fuck ever is blocking the sun from hitting the moon appears to over half of the earth. So we're going to have to figure that out. I don't know if he's going to get that far, though.
Right over the North Pole.
Oh.
So I just took that very first eclipse in 2016, in September 16. I took an object around the same size as the sun and the moon. It was around 38-mile diameter, and I moved it up and down in altitude until I found it where it was occulting the light from the sun going to the moon.
Oh, okay. He says, honey, I don't know if you really grasp this. He just said that the moon and the sun are 38 miles in diameter. Probably bullshit he pulled out of his ass, just willy-nilly. I mean, that's how big they have to be apparently in order for them to orbit in the upper atmosphere. But you see, here's the problem, is that the way that the sun actually works with the rate in which it burns through its fuel is not sustainable on a 38-mile diameter orb, right? So he has to provide, an alternate method for it to produce light. It has to figure out how it's, fusioning those hydrogen atoms, or even if there is hydrogen atoms in their fucking sun. He would have to explain all of those things. He would have have to explain how we can, use different wavelengths of light to see in more detail, like stuff that the sun outputs. He would have to explain why those things look like that. He's got a lot of explanations just on the claim that, the sun is 38 miles in diameter. As far as the moon, he would have to show how the moon actually affects our tides and how a 38-mile wide rock or orb or whatnot in our upper atmosphere, he would have to show why that actually orbits up there, along with the sun, by the way. He would have to show how that orbits up there. And then finally, which that's just a few things, right? That's just a few things. But then he's also going to have to tell us what the fuck is blocking the sunlight from getting there, and why is it that particular object can make the lunar eclipse appear to over half of the planet.
Once I did that, I ran the model for those hours that the lunar eclipse is happening, and the shadow movement, where it entered and where it exited and how it moved, matched exactly what was being shown on time and date. So then I went forward to the February 2017, and I kept going forward, looking at the lunar eclipses, and they all happened the same. Their shadow movements matched what was being shown on time and date, yet I never needed to move that central object anymore. And in some of my earlier videos, I called it Rahu. I don't think that really matches the Vedic explanation of it. Or maybe it does. They don't get into really detailed specifics on the two.
I really don't understand what he's showing us right now, other than just some cool like geometric shapes. I don't know what the fuck this is that he's showing us. It would be nice if he could actually explain what's on the fucking screen right now, instead of just assuming that we're all quote unquote as woke as him.
Let me ask you something. Is Rahu in K2 at least the way you're interpreting it? Because I've seen two different interpretations. One is them being actual black bodies, and then others describing them as simple nodal points.
Okay, so now what they're describing, back in ancient times in this one ancient culture, I can't remember the culture, I'm sorry. Maybe somebody in the chat right now can let me know. But there's apparently, I believe it was in Asia, they had this idea that there were these black bodies or black things that would descend over the earth and block out the moon for those eclipses, because they had to have some way to do it. And they named these things like two different things, Rahu or Ryu and Ken or something. I don't know. I wonder how many people got that reference, because I know KC didn't.
Which way are you looking at?
I've seen both explanations too. I tend to go with the nodal point explanation, and somehow harmonically canceling out the transmission of light on certain frequencies, or it's some sort of canceling type of effect.
That's how I would see it as well. Yeah.
And they know the schedule. It's not like
exactly what harmonic frequency cancels light. Like can I type that? Like, what frequency cancels light?
like they need to be predictive. The model itself, if you just were to note all the eclipses over time, like they've done since ancient times, you see a 223 moon cycle. All the cycle does is repeat itself, even in quality. So when you have red moons, I found out were when the alignment was almost exactly 180. Of course, it could be 180 also, but I don't think I even noticed any that were exactly 180. But they were really close, and the closer they were, the more red they were. At a certain perfect alignment of 180, they would start to call them red moons.
Oh, God. Okay, so now he's trying to explain why the moon turns red during a lunar eclipse. The real reason why is that the way that the light hits our atmosphere, the other parts of the light spectrum are scattered away, while the red portions, or the longer ones, are the ones that hit the moon. Now, what he's saying is that as you get closer, it becomes more red. This actually contradicts reality, because if you don't remember, the red shift of stars is what actually proves that, the universe is very old, because the farther away something is, the redder it looks when you actually look through that spectrum. So this is actually directly contradictory to reality, like visible things that you can actually look at.
Light up the moon and give it that redness. If it was not exactly 180, the white light from the sun would overpower any effect that might have. The red light being a much dimmer light,
Exactly, and that's what this image here was showing. That I was showing earlier from the white paper study. There is the polarization of the entire sky. Right, that center point is the nodal point, and then in divisions of 45 degrees, you end up essentially
whatever red light thing he's saying here, whatever fucking model he's producing here. Like, I don't know. Like sunlight day. I have no idea what this is modeling.
With eight zones. So if you just count them, it's like 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So there's the harmonic octave.
There's the harmonic octave, people. This is the harmonic octave that proves the flat Earth thing and why the moon goes red during lunar eclipses. It also proves lunar eclipses. This ain't octave harmonic bullshit.
Yeah, and it's not that I think that there's some sort of dark body over the North Pole. I never really thought that. I think that it's more of a representation that when these two objects are directly in line with the geographic North Pole, that they create some sort of canceling effect in the transmission of energy from the sun to the moon.
All right, so let me get this straight. There's not, okay, so you don't subscribe to the whole an orb descends above the North Pole. You think that when the moon comes directly in line with the sun, there's some kind of energy cancellation effect so that it goes dark. Okay, so the problems with that is that you would have to explain why when the moon does get into that 180 degree opposite directly, why isn't it a full like lunar eclipse the entire time, like a umbra eclipse, like the full lunar eclipse? Because not every single time is a full lunar eclipse. Those only happen at certain points. Other times they're penumbras or partial. So I don't understand why you think that every single lunar eclipse is a full lunar eclipse, but you're wrong.
Some sort of backslash or back whiplash of the energy that's coming from the sun.
There's a backlash, whiplash of the energy coming from the sun. So would there be some way, like, we can look at the sun and we can see like solar flares, we can see sunspots and all this other shit. If there's some kind of energy backlash coming from the perfect alignment of the sun and the moon, and there's some kind of vortex up there that's causing light to just shut the fuck off up there, wouldn't we be able to detect that particular beam of bullshit? Like, wouldn't we be able to look up into the sky or at least detect it in some way? Like, I feel like we would be able to detect that shit in some way, because if it's light canceling, then we would see like a fucking dark like thing up there whenever the moon was there. I guess because it happens at night and it's a lunar eclipse, that's why we don't see a dark like big black dildo up there. I don't know.
Because of it's coming directly over the North Pole. There's some canceling effect of the North Pole.
Prove it! You're asserting these things, that's fine. This is, I guess, somewhat of a hypothesis. You could try to call it a hypothesis, I guess. Now, if you could actually provide some evidence that this shit actually happens, that would be awesome. Whatever the fuck kind of little LiDAR images or whatever the fuck kind of radar images or whatever you had up there, that's not proof. You're providing me these images out of context. I don't know what it's modeling, what it's showing, what it's supposed to tell me. I don't know any of that shit. You're acting like you're going through a scientific goddamn paper, but honestly, I think anybody that's looking at your particular fucking quote-unquote research here would not think, oh shit, this is PhD goddamn material. We need to print this in Nature magazine right the fuck now. That's not anything that would happen.
Like a beam that goes up the North Pole, that if the sun and the moon are in line with that beam, it kind of sucks up the energy.
Right.
Okay, so if it sucks up the energy, we'd be able to definitely detect that, but we don't. If there's a light canceling effect, would not the sun go dark too? Do you think the entire world is dark? Do you, if it's a light canceling beam, then the sun's light should go out too because they're canceling each other. That's considering that apparently when those two are perfectly fucking aligned, apparently they emit some kind of harmonic audio frequency that cancels out light. And I have no idea how that's supposed to work.
Right, it's kind of a discordant type of thing. It's something that would be. And what's interesting is
I'm doing two different frequencies. Sorry, but you know what a beat pattern is, right? Whoa, whoa,
oh, absolutely.
I can guarantee you these guys don't know a goddamn thing about how sound waves work.
I have you.